Hey everyone, welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Jay Dorena. Throughout history, there have been very many great conquests, inspiring people, moments that changed the world for the better. But there also have been some massive screw-ups. People dropping the ball so hard, they will forever be remembered as the guy who flubbed. I did some digging to find some of the biggest flubs in history. For today's list of top 10 scary mistakes in history you won't believe. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also, make sure you stick around for the whole list because a lot of these are pretty famous, so I want to see how many of them you actually recognize. And without taking any longer, let's get into it. Number 10. Chernobyl. If you screw up at work, what's the worst thing that will happen? Maybe the report doesn't get done, oh no! Or the investors get really salty, but I bet it wouldn't cause the biggest nuclear meltdown in history. The Chernobyl incident involves a nuclear power plant located in the Ukraine back in 1986. What happened was, a couple of scientists were running a test. They wanted to check if some of the safety systems would work in the event of a power outage. They botched the test. When they turned the power down, it plummeted to 1%, and then it shot back up, which caused the reactor to blow. Then basically a bunch of science stuff happened. Some chemicals mixed with other chemicals, which caused a steam explosion, which blew the top off the reactor. It started a massive fire, which then took 10 days to put out. The heat from the power plant was so intense, it was melting the firefighters' shoes. This was such a serious incident that if they had failed to contain the reactor and the whole power plant exploded, it would have made all of Europe unlivable for 100 years. Number 9. The Titanic. We all know this one. James Cameron is still backstroking through $100 bills from all the money he made off this movie. The Titanic was built the most beautiful, luxurious cruiser of its time. It was thought to be such a marvel of engineering that it was completely unsinkable. But as the old saying goes, don't get cocky! Because that baby sunk. It sunk so hard. It hit an iceberg at nearly full speed that slashed a hole in it bigger than all my friends' post-secondary debt. From here the mistakes piled up. There were only 20 lifeboats on board. That was enough for less than half of the people on the ship. They simply thought it was impossible for a boat this incredible to sink before another boat came to its rescue. This is why you never be the first person to do anything. Everyone who took the maiden voyage on the Titanic are like all the people sitting at home with 3D TVs and those dumb glasses. The closest boat to answer the distress call was over 4 hours away, and by the time they had got there to pick up the survivors, over 1,500 people had died. Oof. Number 8. The Hindenburg. This was the biggest passenger airship ever built. The blimp was nearly the size of the Titanic with 0 Bud Light ads on it. At the time, this was thought to be the future of air travel. Everyone who bought stock in these blimps probably watching the Hindenburg disaster was like, ah man, I better invest in mustache wax. There's no way mustaches are gonna go out of fashion in the 1940s, there's no way. But it was pretty impressive. At the time, airships were doing things that were unthinkable to do on planes. One of those unthinkable things was making the whole thing float using hydrogen, which is highly flammable, and they even put a smoking room on the ship. This wasn't even the first airship to go down. People knew that hydrogen was dangerous, but they thought they could make it work if they did it properly. What ended up happening was the Hindenburg sprung a leak, and where they were supposed to land there had just been a huge thunderstorm that passed through, and the air was charged with static electricity. They tried to land too fast, which caused a spark, and kaboom! Number 7. Napoleon's failed invasion of Russia. Back in the late 1800s, the baby-faced Napoleon was the baddest dude around. He expanded the French Empire further than it has ever gone before, and now he wanted to put the squeeze on Britain. He wanted to do this by stopping other countries from trading with them. So he did what Napoleon did best: war. He was going to invade Russia to screw up their trade with Britain. Napoleon came in with an army of 422,000 troops and a heavy artillery. The Russians did not have the military power to go up against such a force, so they used what they called the scorched earth tactic, slowly retreating while taking all the supplies from every village and burning them to the ground. This meant the French would not be able to properly set up camp, so they would have to constantly go through reserves, with many men dying from starvation. By the time they reached Moscow, it had been burned to the ground and winter was setting in. Of the 422,000 French troops who entered Russia, only 20,000 made it out alive. Oh my god. Number 6. China closes its doors. Back in the 14th century, colonization was the new black. Everyone was doing it. The French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the English. Everyone except for China. China had arguably the largest and most advanced naval fleet of all these countries. They had technology that would allow them to keep food and water fresh for much longer periods of time, allowing them to cover much greater distances. Some historians believe that they reached America way before any European nations. But everything changed when China implemented a new closed border policy. This made it illegal for Chinese people to even trade with other countries. If it wasn't for this change, we might all be speaking Chinese right now. Number 5. World War birthday. There are some occasions where it's fine to miss someone's birthday, like if you're in the middle of a world war, or if you don't like them. Well, Erwin Rommel was a German senior officer during World War II, and he was in charge of keeping the French northern coast. Hitler was probably like, this is really important, don't screw this up. Spoiler alert, for anyone who doesn't know how World War II goes, he totally screws it up. On June 5th, 1944, it was Rommel's wife's birthday, and because it seemed like an attack on the French coast would be completely unthinkable, he decided to fly home to Germany to be with his wife. Of course, the next day was D-Day. While Rommel was opening presents with his wife, 156,000 American, Canadians, and UK soldiers stormed France. By August, France was liberated, and within a year the war was won. I wonder which would be worse, forgetting your wife's birthday or telling Hitler that you lost France. Number 4. The girl who cried wolf. Sometimes people just need to learn how to be happy with what they have. Stop trying to reach some sort of godlike level of power. In 1856, a young girl named Nunga Kwase told her tribe, the Kusa people of South Africa, that she had had a vision. She said that while she was at the river getting water for the village, an ancestor spoke to her and told her that if the tribe killed all their livestock and destroyed all their crops, they'd be given godlike power. This was the tribe's whole food supply. And without anyone taking a moment to second guess a teenager's fever dream, they did it. Why did anyone listen to her? We've all been teenagers with bad ideas. Most of us have the tattoos to prove it. The tribe killed 300,000 to 400,000 animals, and around 78,000 people died from famine. After everything was said and done, it became clear that no one was going to get superpowers, so they threw her in jail. It seems like such a strange clash of things, to use the legal system to prosecute someone who is wrong about a prophecy. That's like arresting your parents because Santa Claus isn't real. Number 3. Marie Antoinette. Here's a big one. You're the Queen of France. Your people are starving. Every day they beg you to help them. So what do? Party, baby. Marie Antoinette wasn't the sole cause of the French Revolution, but she definitely got the French people motivated to cut off some monocratic heads. When she was confronted about how little the French people had to eat, about how they didn't have a scrap of bread, she famously said, "Let them eat cake." Yeah, I would have cut off her head too. However, her biggest mistake was probably her getaway. When the French people finally had enough, and it was obvious that it was time for the monarchy to make an escape, they had a plan. The king and queen would take separate, small, inconspicuous carriages to sneak out of the city. This way, it would be hard for people to spot them. But Marie Antoinette, in all her wisdom, insisted that they escape together in a slow 6-horse carriage. They obviously got spotted, the people arrested them, tried them for treason, and then lopped their heads off. Number 2. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand. Who would have thought that the assassination of a simple duke would have set the world into such chaos? So there were a bunch of mistakes on this one. So first, Franz Ferdinand was the duke who was assassinated, which sparked World War I. Big mistake. But before that, the first assassination attempt was flubbed. The duke got away. Then the driver took a wrong turn, and the assassin was eating a sandwich in a cafe, saw the duke passing by, and finished the job. That was mistake number 2. And on top of all this, the assassination led to World War I, which led to the Treaty of Versailles, which embarrassed Germany, which led to the rise of the Nazi Party, which led to World War II. I'm sure if the assassin sitting in the cafe could see how big of a mistake he was about to make, he would have just had a second sandwich. And number 1 on our list is the killing of Genghis Khan's envoy. Genghis Khan is probably the deadliest dude who ever lived. It's thought that his rule caused the death of around 40 million people. Well, one day he sent an envoy to what would now be Iran to make trade deals with the Shah. The Shah didn't like this deal, so he did what any good businessman would do and cut off the envoy's head and sent it back to Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is like a super chill dude, so he went to the city and killed everyone. Everyone. He murked the whole place. 100,000 people blasted. Then started a full-on assault on the rest of the Middle East. The crazy part about this is Genghis Khan wanted to trade with the Shah to fund his war against China. He didn't care about the Middle East. But the Shah's stupid move made Genghis Khan flex on the whole Middle East and caused literally millions of deaths. Alright, that's our list. Let us know in the comments how many massive mistakes you already knew about, and how many of them were brand new to you. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. As always, I've been Jade Arena, and I'll see you next time.